Rev up your engines! Alright, you might got a trouble code in your car. Mechanic tells you need an evap canister. Well, what the heck is that? Well, here's one. Goes on this Toyota. He got this one online, so it was cheaper than the dealer one. As you can see, my all data system, it's $352 if you buy it at the dealer. So if you can find it someplace else, go right ahead. Okay, so what exactly does this gigantic, crazy assembly do? Well, your gas tank's full of gasoline, and there's gasoline vapor inside. It used to just get vented to the atmosphere, and people said, oh, that's polluting the world. So they came up with these crazy systems that some of the time they filter that vapor through this canister, and then they let purified air out into the atmosphere. And sometimes when they're too full and there's too much vapor, they send the vapor back into the engine where it's burned up. This one's broken. I'll show you, it's not that big of a deal to change out, as long as you take your time, because everything's plastic and you don't want to break it. So we'll jack it up in the air, because it's in the back. We'll put a jack stand so we don't get squashed. Now as we crawl under here, now we gotta find this stupid thing, because they change them every year. Now unlike my wife's Matrix that's 3 years younger, we're out in the open here, this one's just hidden under the stupid plate, so we gotta take the plate off. This plate's got a lot of rusty bolts. If they break, you can always leave the stupid thing off, but we'll try to save them. This bolt came off clean. Well, as you can see, most of it's rotting away anyway, so we're not going to worry about it. My wife's cover was gone years ago. It's just sitting out there bare too. Now this basically shows you the problem with northern cars. These bolts are all rusted. That one's peened off. I'm going to have to get a special tool to get that off. Because you see, this Matrix has spent its life in Texas and Tennessee. Everything's still whistle clean. There's her Evap system. You can see it's not rusted at all. Big difference between having northern cars and southern cars. The bolt heads are rusted too. I'm using these rocket sockets. They're cool. They dig in. When you turn them out, they dig into the top, so you can get off ones that are even kind of peened off. So we'll stick it on the end, then we'll hammer it on here to get it tight. Then you can see it now comes off. They're real handy little sockets. The bolts off, we got to disconnect these connectors. You get one of these little pullers. You can pop the little connectors off. Now you're going to find it's hard to get to some of these connectors, so it's better since we got the whole thing disconnected. We can put it down, then we can access these things easy. Now in this case here, this plastic piece stuck and it's going to break. So what I'm doing is I'm taking it off, and you can see here on the new one, I would just take this part off and I'll connect it where the hose clamp is on the new one, because we don't want to break this plastic part. It's getting ready to break, so we'll just take the clamp off. Now as you can see, I've cut the hose off here. So rather than get this plastic piece that's going to break, we'll just take the hose off of this and clamp that back on here. You don't want to break it. If you break this connector, you're screwed. Then you have to buy this whole hose or something. As you can see here, I pulled that off and we can just plug it in here, rather than attempt to break this thing that's going to snap off. Wiggling and pulling, we got the stupid thing off. There it is. We place it back and quick put a couple bolts on so it doesn't fall. You don't want all your work to come crashing down. Good thing putting it together is easier than taking it apart. Well, the things just all snap back on. And when you plug them in, don't forget to push the clips in. Then we got to bolt the other end on, and you'll see that old heat shield was all rotten anyways. And at least the parts that's heat shielding it next to the exhaust is still there to keep the heat off. Down here it really didn't do that much anyways. We're not going to go buy that whole part, gigantic piece, as expensive as can be, so it's perfectly fine. You saw my wife's. Hers is just in the open. It was made that way, so we don't really care here. And we'll bolt the front on too, and away you go. Now it's on there nice and solid. One of the reasons I originally moved from Niagara Falls to Texas, I didn't have to deal with all this rusty stuff. Now we'll reset the codes, take it for a spin. We'll turn the key on, roll the windows down because it's hot. Gloves off because I'm not getting dirty anymore, hopefully. We'll erase the codes. Got a bunch of leaks. The pump's bad. That's all on one part there. Clear those codes. Cleared. We'll check them just to make sure. Codes. No codes. So we're taking for a little spin. And while we're at that, annoying maintenance required lights on, so I'll show you how to turn them off. You turn the car off. You turn the car on. Then you got to find the reset button. Sometimes it's trip A, so now that it's in trip A, turn the key off. Then we'll push the trip and turn the key on. Still flashing, so we're going to try one more thing. We're going to put it just on the odometer Then we'll turn it off, hold it down, and turn the key on again. This should reset it because there's nothing else you can do. If this doesn't reset it, it means the system's broken, and then you just live with it. It's on trip A, and you can see now that it's turned off. We'll start it. You're always going to see it when you start it, but see how it goes off? It doesn't flash anymore, so it's trip A. You do it on trip A, you turn it off, then you push the button and turn the key and it resets. It's kind of annoying, so let's take it for a spin. And down the road we go. It's newer than my wife's Matrix. Hers is an 07. This is the 2010, but this one's got a lot more mileage and it's kind of been through the washing machine, but it still runs. Now, a lot of times the Evap canister assemblies don't go bad, but in this case, he went through some flood water and then it all came on. It messed up the electronics in it when he went through flood water. Here we go. Thing still goes now. It's faster than my wife's Matrix. Not even though the struts are worn. Still handles perfectly fine. Fun car to drive around. Then now you can certainly understand why people go to Texas, Arizona, New Mexico to buy cars, because they don't rust. This car's got probably 400% more rust than my wife's Matrix, and the Matrix 3 years older. But nothing big has fallen off of it yet. It still runs fine. Shifts like a dream, and it goes smooth enough down the road. Now the check engine light's not on anymore. Saved myself over $100 buying a part. Oh yeah, it's a northern car and it's a pain. Those bolts are going to be breaking off, snapping off. That's just what happens to them. But it shows that you can buy these parts online. He bought it online. He bought it from Parts Geek. They didn't pay me any money to say that. He just told me. I didn't buy it. He did. Now it's going perfectly fine. These things basically can run forever. The real problem here is it's a northern car and eventually things will rust and come off. All the uncoated stuff will eventually start rusting. Control arms, all of that stuff. But it still runs perfectly fine. This is an all-wheel drive one, so he's not going to get stuck anywhere in it, and that's still working perfectly fine. Realize, these are just Toyota Corollas in disguise. Originally, they were called Toyota Corolla Matrixes, then they just called them Matrixes. Then they stopped making them, and now they call them Toyota hatchbacks, which are basically a Matrix, but they didn't want to admit that they didn't want to make them, and then they decided to use the name again. So instead of calling them Toyota Matrixes like they did, now they call them Toyota Corolla hatchbacks, but they're really Matrixes in disguise. And the things can run forever if you take care of them. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Wesley Richards says, thoughts on a late model Subaru with a Jatco CVT? I wouldn't buy it. I would not buy one with a Jatco CVT. But the newer Subarus, they're not using Jatcos. A real late one doesn't use it. But if you found out you had a Jatco transmission, you're looking at a car to buy, don't buy it. Especially if it's a CVT transmission. They don't hold up. Like I say, the newer Subarus do not use the Jatcos. If you're looking to buy one, and if it's a CVT made by Jatco, I would not buy the car. KP says, Lexus CT200H or Honda Fit. Well, you're comparing apples to oranges there, right? I mean, a relatively luxurious car against the little Honda Fit that's made for going around. What do you want? Now, if you want long life and good gas mileage, get the Honda Fit. Those little bitty things get phenomenal gas mileage, and they're zippy enough for a little car driving around. But of course, the Lexus is much more luxurious car. Now, when it comes to the price, you're going to pay a ton more for the Lexus. So, I mean, generally, you get a much better price on a Honda Fit. And if you don't mind a smaller, rougher ride, but if you want a really nice ride and stuff, you're much better off with the Lexus. They're both well made, but the money versus what you're getting, what do you want to buy? You know, if you don't mind an Econobox Honda Fit, it can run forever. Just don't expect smooth rides. They're relatively rough rides. It's a small wheelbase car. Tom Wanamaker says, I got a 93 ES300, 50,000 miles, one owner. The OD light's flashing. All right. Well, when the OD light flashes, that means there is a transmission trouble code stored. Just like if your check engine light is flashing, that means that there's a code set for the engine control system. Well, in your case, you got some kind of a problem with the transmission. You're going to have to go to a guy like me that's got a good scan tool and analyze it, because a normal cheap scan tool isn't going to give you too many transmission codes, where the thousands of dollars ones that I have will give you all the codes. So find a guy who knows Lexus that has a machine to plug it in, and then he can tell you what's going on with it. Now, on the other hand, sometimes they get that old, they just flash. If it still shifts and runs okay, you can ignore it. A lot of people will. George Strobel says, Scotty, what's your opinion of an 03 to 08 Dodge Ram HD truck with a diesel motor with 150,000 plus miles? Thanks. I'm not a Dodge fan, but you're talking about an older one. You gotta have a mechanic like me check it out with their scan tool. If a mechanic checks it out and says it's good, it could be an excellent vehicle. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, Remember to ring that bell.